Charles Louis are mortgage brokers for first-time buyers, existing homeowners looking to move home or remortgage and downsizers. And Charles Louis also advise on equity release. There are few more contentious issues than VAR in modern day football. It's one of those subjects that everybody has an opinion about. You're going to hear the opinion in this particular video from two ex-players, Colin Hendry and Jim Melrose, and a lot of City fans as well. How does it affect them when they go to a game? Do they think it's the right thing? Should it stay? Would it ever drive them away from the game? And it's certainly something that, as I say, polarises opinion. This is a video that was also, the audio from this was also the Forever Blue podcast recently. So this is part one of two videos that I'm posting here on YouTube, so you can get a little flavour of what that audio podcast was like. You can subscribe to it either on Soundcloud, iTunes, Spotify, any of the normal platforms that you get your podcast on. Here, of course, on YouTube. Thanks very much for subscribing. If you click the little bell button, then that means that you get notified when I put up a new video, which is very much appreciated. And as always, the videos are free. So this is the VAR debate with lots of different opinions. Let me know what you think of it. And there'll be another video about how football moves forward post-COVID very soon. In the meantime, thanks very much to charleslouis.co.uk for being my sponsors. Enjoy this one.
VAR just drives me insane. It started with, I'm rubbish for dates. We're at last season, I think, when we played Tottenham, and it were right at the last second, weren't it, of the game. To get that decision, it just blew my mind, and I thought, I don't know if I can cope with this happening every game. And it got to the stage where I'm watching games, and when the goal goes in, instead of jumping up straight, I'm looking at the scoreboard. I'm sat in my chair looking at the scoreboard. People around me might be jumping up, and I'm thinking, you might be jumping up too early here. That's how it got to me. And I'm thinking, this isn't football. It's taking the buzz and the passion out of it for me. It's just some of the decision. It's the inconsistency of it as well that drives me mad.
So in theory, it works because obviously a lot of people before VAR came in said, we want VAR, we want the decisions to be right, we want to take away any suggestion of biasness from referees, you know, the corruption of referees, all sorts of things were thrown out. Now we, in theory, have the perfect system, and you're still not happy.
No, well, I think the system probably works. I think it's the people who are manning it are probably not making the right decisions for me. Whether I'm right or wrong is up for debate. But it says video assistant referee. They're not assistant, they're running the game. They're the ones making the decision. They're the ones telling the man in the middle, you're wrong or you're right or whatever. And the fact that they never went and reviewed it on a screen, they might be doing that now, but they weren't doing it at the beginning. And it's just not football for me. It really, like, before all this COVID thing, I was rapidly falling out of love with the game. And for me, that's massive, because I went to my first match in '76, and I've been a season ticket holder for as many years as you can remember. I've been every stand in every ground. But for an assistant sat in a box somewhere in wherever it is, Stockley Park or whatever, to be running the game, it's just not football for me. It really took it out. And to be offside by a big toe, I just find just bonkers. I think you should give the advantage to the attacking team. Drawing all these lines on a screen, and it's not for me, to be honest. You know,
VAR is going to destroy the game that's already got a question mark over it. And the reason I think that, Ian, is because of the inconsistency. So the players, for instance, handballs and penalties. So where are you going to put your hand? Where it contacts you, and an inconsistency of whoever's looking at the screen. It's always a person that's looking at the screen has got to make that decision. Not what I get is, they're going over for a VAR. It's another person looking at the same thing that the pundits have looked at, the fans have looked at, the referees looked at. They're just waiting for the confirmation.
So is it VAR that's wrong, or is it the rule that's wrong?
I think VAR is wrong. I don't think the game needs that. If it was consistent, like if you look at Hawkeye in tennis, okay, they get that spot on. It's spot on. 99.9%, it's spot on. This isn't. It's got issues in it. And to me, don't bring a system into play if there's issues with it. Oh, it's great if we're losing 1-0. Sorry, losing, we get a penalty in the last minute. VAR is lovely then. It's great. Oh, we got a penalty, but no. I'd rather go to the way that I know football as. The referee, the linesman, or the officials make the decision, and we just have to take it on the chin and move on.
Tal, you're an obsessed football fan like me. You go to games all the time. Is VAR enough potentially to stop you going, or will you just go and moan about it?
Listen, I compare. No, I dare not say that. No, the wife's very similar. 23 years. I put up with her, and I would have to put up with VAR if it was to be introduced into the game, because I love my city too much to not be in my position to watch. Yes, I might disagree with some of the issues, but I think we're going to get told to shut up and put up, and that's what's going to happen. If you don't want to go, don't go, but shut up and put up if you're coming to the game. Horrible, but it is going to be the way I see it. And again, it's my personal views.
So before VAR came in, were you one of those who said, we've got all these cameras around the stadium, why aren't we using them? We should be bringing VAR in. Or did you not want it right from the beginning?
I think again, you see, when you look at technology that's come into the world, we grew up in a non-technology era. All of a sudden, technology, if it's correct like Hawkeye, then I'm all for it. But it's the problem I've got with it is there's flaws in it. And you can't introduce something to somebody if it's got flaws in it. You look at these driverless cars they're going on about, there's flaws in them. You look at sat navigation, there's flaws in them. Get it concrete. Now, like I say, Hawkeye is 99.9% spot on. VAR streets away. They're individuals making a decision. It's not a computer. It's an individual who's just thinking, they've got to make it quick. And look at the time it takes to make a decision. Look at the injury time at the end of an average game. That Brighton game the other week when Manchester United technically drew a game, and then the whistle was blown, and then VAR brought them back. That's just going to kill the game if there's anything left in it. I mean, So yeah, I'm just going to be one of these, a bit like yourself, probably. Just shut up and put up.
Last season, being at matches, it was awful. You didn't know what was going on. Hated it. That Tottenham killer that you referred to in the podcast this week, I can remember exactly how I felt. I was there with my family as well, so I can relate perfectly to how badly VAR can affect you in the stadium. As we're now sofa based, I can see why the TV folks like it. It doesn't impact on you very much. There's a few delays. I think it's better that they're actually going to the pitch side, making decisions, not that it's been made remotely. But in the end, I think is it a question of the interpretation of the rule, particularly handball, particularly offside, penalties, people diving, whether or not VAR should be used to give people cards retrospectively for diving. I think it's here to stay. And if I'm honest, I'd rather we didn't have it all. I just wish we go back to having debate about the decisions after the match and having some go for us and some beginners.
Will it ever stop you going then? If ever we're back inside the stadiums and there's any sort of normality, would VAR ever be enough to stop you?
I think it might. Yeah, I think if things were as sterile and as horrible as they were, as I felt once or twice last season, yeah, I think it was getting a bit. It was getting a bit troublesome, last season. So I think if they can improve it and share with fans in the stadium more what's going on, at home, what's going on, but you don't in the ground. So I think unless they tackle that, yeah, I could see it becoming a problem. They've managed it in other sports. I'm sure they can do it as well in football.
A lot of people though say it takes the emotion out, and the match going fan. It might not, as you say, make much difference to somebody watching on TV where you're perhaps a little less emotional, but in the stadium it just extinguishes that moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, but we had that last season. You could see last season after goals were scored, we're all looking and seeing whether or not there's a reason why it's not going to be given, and you don't realise they're going back 6 or 7 plays, and you're just left in the stadium with no idea of what's going on. So yeah, I think it does take the emotion out. Imagine the idea of a goal being scored and you erupting, and then the linesman puts his flag up 10 seconds after the goal's gone in, and which is what they're doing now, and no one cares because there's no one in the stadium. So yeah, I think it's definitely taking the emotion out, but we don't feel or see that because we're not part of the entertainment anymore. We're watching it through a glass lens.
For most fans, the talking points about football matches is not how well the team played or how badly, but it was always about the referees' decisions. And fundamentally, I feel that the administrators don't trust the referees to arrive at the right decision now, because they're breaking it right down to the minutiae, where they're slowing it so quickly that in real time you make a decision. And I'll say this, the referees make honest decisions, Ian. They don't, there's no maliciousness in what they do. They adjudicate on what they see. And this nonsense of stopping the game and, opening it up and getting them to reverse decisions is an absolute nonsense.
You think that it could ultimately spoil the game and drive people away from it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As I said earlier, when you go to a game of football, everybody wants to talk about it afterwards. And the referees are part of the game. And now I just think they're being alienated. I think they're being castigated. I think they're being judged. And more importantly, I think they're taking away their judgment on a football decision. And it's not good for the game. It's not good for the referees because, with the way social media is today, everybody gets a bit of stick on it if you put something contentious up there. And I just think that I really feel sorry for the referees today because they're not being allowed to do the job to the best of their ability.
What about the players? You were a player. I mean, would you have liked to have played in the era of VAR?
Well, I had a friend of mine look at one of our old tapes. In fact, I'll tell you the game it was. It was the 5-1 game against Charlton at Main Road. And in the first 20 minutes, there was 11 sending offs and 20 bookings under today's rules. And that wasn't a physical game.
But is that not a difference in the rules, though? It's not VAR that's
there's
caused
no
that.
rules. There's laws. No. Let's get it right. There's no rules in football. They're laws, right? And it's exactly the same. But there's always been the 13th law, which was the referee's common sense, and that for me has been taken away from them.
That's what VAR's done. It's took common sense away.
I think VAR. I get the premise of they could be brought in when it's a really obvious decision that's been missed. I understand that, but it's like the offside. It's not your nose that's offside. It should be your feet. The ball hits your hand. Whether it's this is there's been blatant penalty kicks this year where they haven't been given them. I just think that, let's put it this way, it's not VAR's fault. It's the idiots that are watching it.
So you're not a fan?
No.
If I'm being honest, I think it's brought more complications to the game. There was nothing wrong with the game before, Ian. I mean, there's a lot of different things involved with VAR, notably all the different law changes. And I'm not going to go through them with a fine-tooth comb. Your handball, your offsides, just to name two things, penalty kicks. I understand the penalty kicks going back if it is a penalty kick. I understand that because that's a game-changing situation. And I know people say that, hold on, offsides is a game-changing. There was nothing wrong with the offsides before. There's nothing wrong with that before because you give the officials the understanding with the naked eye, and everybody's governed by that. So all of a sudden now, you've got people that, A, can't work the system. They can't work the mechanics of it. They can't work the machines because the population of people watching a game of footy that come away and go, I'm just trying to think now, right off the top of my head, see the red card, Man United, the other night, Tottenham. Was it Lallana and Marshall? Talking about the noisy neighbours. Anyway, talking about them. Now, that's not a red card, is it? I mean, he's gone down. He's got a tap on the face. He's gone down. Now, if the referee looks at it, and he's looked at it, or I presume he has, it's a yellow card, if anything, because they've raised their hands, but not to the detriment that you send somebody off. And it's being sensible as well as. And too many times, the good thing is this season, and we're in 3 or 4 games, there's not been a lot of hullabaloo, for a better word, in relation to VAR causing problems or issues. Because last season, it was a minefield. There was so many times. You know, on a Saturday night or a Sunday morning, I was expecting a TV programme to be created for all the VAR clips from the previous day. Because there's so many. And there was nothing wrong. I mean, you can't tackle. You're not allowed to tackle anymore, are you? Because the follow through is deemed inappropriate. It's deemed as well. What do they call it? They say that you could cause harm, but it's part of the game, Ian. It's not.
So is the problem with VAR itself, or is it the rules that are wrong?
I think, and I've warmed to the technicality of what they're using to decipher what's right and what's wrong. It's the people. I mean, there was something, again, I can't recall. There's so many different issues, so many times it's been on TV. It's Peter Walton, and he would not go. He was on television, and everybody, including everybody in the studio, and it might have been one of the big four. It might have been a City game or a Liverpool game or a United game, but there was some big hitters in that studio, and they all agreed. So there might have been a United man with a Liverpool man, or a Liverpool man with United, or whatever. They all agreed, but Peter Walton didn't, and that's where I think that's just been pig-headed in the whole situation, because we all seen it, the public's seen it, the punter's seen it, the Sky TV or BT Sports or whoever it is, they all seen it, the BBC's seen it, but Peter Walton wouldn't go with it because he would be deemed as going against his body of, his referees and everything else. But I mean,
imagine if VAR had come in, it probably wouldn't.
I would have been knackered, Ian. I would never have had a career. But then again, when you're coming through and you're developing as a footballer in my era, then that was part and parcel of it. So you adhere to that, and it's in your head, and you know what's right and what's wrong, and what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. People have said to me, "Would you be able to play?" Well, it's a different game. You're not allowed to tackle. You can't tackle. I mean, so many times players have gone through the ball and they go through the man, and that's in my day, great tackle, win the ball, win the man, fair, clean, fair, everything. Good, great tackle. It's a perfect tackle. The perfect tackle nowadays would be a red card, and it's wrong.
So now we've opened up this can of worms with good intentions, and all of a sudden it's been misconstrued, misused, to the point where now fans are now saying we don't want it.
What is your view then, as a fan who watches a lot of games on television, because obviously you're based in the States? Yeah. Would it put you off VAR, either coming over to England when you can do again and watching games, or continuing to be a big fan as you are on TV, or do you just moan about it and just accept it as, what it is?
So I've been fortunate enough to be in the stadium at the Etihad when VAR was used a couple of times, a couple of games. And I will say that it's a stark difference. It's almost unfair on the fans in the stadium, because you're out there You don't know what the hell's going on. There's no communication. There's a break in play, and you're waiting for the verdict. And you're saying, what the hell's going on? Do we celebrate? Do we not celebrate? Now, when you're at home, you can see the reviews, you can see the reruns, you can see the offside line, you can see the lines they're drawing on the field. You can see all those things that are happening because that's been sent to us or fed to us by the producers. So there has to be a way in which it's done in cricket, it's done in rugby, where the fans can at least see what's going on or hear what's going on from the officials during the game to at least give some context. Now, in the MLS, I will say in the MLS that VAR has been successful for the most part. Maybe it's because we're used to it in the NFL. We're used to it in basketball. We're used to it in some games that we play in the US. People are accustomed to having a review of a play in a game on the spot with an explanation from the referee. Now, in the NFL, the referee has to explain the review of the play that he saw or didn't see. So it's instantaneous, not just to us at home, but also to people in the stadium. And you get to see it, you get to hear it, you get to understand it. Even if you don't agree, at least you have an explanation.
You make some very, very good points, and,
right.
and that's what you bring to the table in this conversation.
Right.
What I would say, though, and this isn't meant to be anti-American, but a lot of the American sports that you talk about, like baseball, are stop-start games,
right.
whereas football is all about, certainly from my experience as a spectator in the stadium, is all about that moment. And that moment used to be instantaneous.
Right.
So whilst, yes, I can understand why you say that getting people to explain to you in the stadium what's going on clearly would be of massive benefit, it still means that rather than that instant success, that instant, yes, we've scored, or, oh no, it's been ruled out because you see the flag go up straight away, that's gone, that instantaneous bit.
Right.
Does that matter?
It matters. I mean, I think the flow and the ebb and flow of football is what makes it exciting. And you look at the Harry Kane goal last week, right, where he was fouled and then he put the ball down and passed it to Sonny, and Sonny scored the goal. That was within like 3 or 4 seconds. So that should continue on. But for the big calls, for the big handball calls, or for the big foul calls, there has to be some sort of way to communicate to people who are waiting for the VAR decision at some point to explain either which way. But for the little calls, I would say, yeah, let it roll on. Like now, for example, the offside rule with the linesman, right? They're now required to put the flags down until the goal is scored, and then you know it's offside because you can see that it's offside. Now in the stadium, I'm assuming that you still wouldn't know that was offside, but at home you would know, right? So there's this drive to get perfection in the game, but at what cost, right? At what cost? Think about what happened with the Champions League versus Spurs when the ball hit Llorente on the arm. We all saw that was wrong. Even the referee at the stadium didn't see the handball. We saw it at home. So how can VAR miss that? So it throws up more issues around potential bias or potential mismanagement than it solves. There's some real issues. What's a handball? Trent Alexander handles the ball in the penalty area versus Liverpool last year. Is that a handball? Well, Llorente did it, right? For us against Spurs. Is that a handball? So, we have to be consistent in the way we apply the law or the rule or the officiating. And it's going to take time to get to that point, in my opinion. Yeah.
Dislike VAR since it came in because it changed the game. It was unrecognisable from the sport that I love and we all love, the passionate one where there's very few stoppages over 95 minutes. Suddenly we were finding stoppages of 2 minutes, 3 minutes sometimes, while decisions were being made, decisions that really a lot of us didn't really argue about for the last 30, 40 years, even if they were slightly wrong. Suddenly the game was completely different. You go back to great goals, match-winning goals from 40 years ago, whatever, this wouldn't have been called off by VAR, but, Paul Power free kick at Villa Park in the semi-final in 1981, things like that. And the explosion on the terraces was unbelievable. Obviously, that's the sort of goal that wouldn't be called off now by VAR, but it's that kind of passion that we're still losing, even though we're getting the decisions correct. And I'm backtracking a little bit on what I said earlier. Still, when goals are scored, you do have that moment of passion, but then you suddenly say to yourself, just a minute, this might be called off yet. And that shouldn't come into sport, shouldn't come into football anyway, not when you've been brought up on really it being passion being the number one criteria for why you follow football. But yeah, and those decisions that you said, which were the armpit and things like that, and I mean that just turned it into a mockery, really. Nobody really wants to go into that kind of minor detail. Yeah, I mean, if it's offside, it's offside. And as long as the decisions can be taken without stopping the game, then, we can live with that. But we need to find a way of being able to maintain the passion of the game while getting the benefit of VAR's accuracy. And how they do that, I don't know. But if it's at the expense of the passion, then I'd rather get the decisions slightly wrong and keep the passion.
Could VAR ever drive you away from football if it's not administered correctly?
No, it couldn't, Ian. I've had that. I've had that sort of debate with myself and with other people over the last couple of years, and if it was going to drive me away, it would have driven me away in that first 12 months, first 18 months. I've enjoyed it more of late when the stoppages haven't been happening. It was the stoppages that really, really killed me. And if I can survive that Champions League quarter-final against Spurs and what happened there, then I can survive anything.
I just think it spoils the game, especially, you're waiting for a goal to go in and you've got to wait till kick-off to find out if your team's actually scored. I don't understand how it can work in the likes of cricket and rugby, yet it can't work in football.
Could it ever drive you away from City in football?
No, I'd never stop going to watch City. Nothing had ever stopped me watching it. It just irritates me. It just annoys me, and I wish it had never been brought into the Premier League. But if we've got to put up with it, we've got to put up with it. But it never stopped me watching football. No.
And a big thank you to Charles Louis Mortgage Advisors for their support in the making of this and lots of other of my videos.